Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is CM Alexander with the news. The Little Sisters of Derry, a free pop-up clinic, has locals concerned about the unconventional treatment they've received. One client who spoke with us reported that the food made him sleepy, and it was like he could feel his flesh crawling. Being the only patient to have returned from the Little Sisters, he explained that he was asked to leave for taking his shirt off. Despite our best efforts, he then removed his shirt for us, exposing his chest hair, which grows like two intersecting lines, forming a central point. You're listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Derry Public Radio.
Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King Book Club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Kahn, alongside CM Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And our third co-host.
Heat from fire, fire from heat, everyone.
What?
I refuse to explain, although there is a small subset of our audience that knows exactly what I'm about to say next.
I thought you were going to say that exists.
Well, that's true. There's a small percentage of our audience that does exist. So, before we get started on today's episode, I have a little announcement to make. I've had a hell of a year, y'all, and I've been stressing about how to do this for a while, how to go about it, and fuck it, let's just go. Hi, everyone. I am trans. I'm a trans woman. I am going by the name Eve Godot now. She, her. So I will still be hosting the podcast. And that's pretty much it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Happy to have you on the show, Eve.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm just happy to have you in my life as Eve.
Also,
and on
yes,
the show.
For sure.
Don't make me cry. I have to host an episode.
Suck it. Your tears up back into your eyes.
What just happened?
CM tried to be supportive and then made it sexual, as she always does.
That was a very confusing few seconds for me.
Welcome to being my friend, my girlfriend.
Just before we move on, I do have to say this podcast is for girls now.
Yeah.
I've always been one of the girls.
Sorry,
it's
Josh.
fine.
Everybody deal with it.
Yeah. In this episode, we are returning back to Everything's Eventual. We are diving back into the Road to the Dark Tower with Little Sisters of Eluria, and we have Eve leading our discussion. Eve, take it away.
Yeah, what better episode for me to host today than about Roland Deschain, none other than the gunslinger, meeting some women who transition into piles of bugs.
That is what being a girl is like. Sorry.
I knew it. Right off the top, this is a story from the book Everything's Eventual that takes place in the Dark Tower series. ?
Is that there's a question mark?
Okay, I don't know how to talk about this without spoiling the end of the series, because we are obviously only on book 2 of 7. And there is something I want to talk about right off the bat that I don't know if I can without referencing a pretty big spoiler from book 7.
Because you're talking about where this book is in the story.
That is exactly right.
Okay.
So let's start in one of my favorite things about Everything's Eventual is each story has a little before or a little afterward of King just like talking about the story, which real nice. I am always fascinated by. And he starts by kind of giving a rundown of, hey, just so you know, this is about Roland Deschain. You can read about his adventures in the 4 extant books that are written so far. And by the way, I'm writing a 5th one, which is exciting.
That laugh. You're like, oh, whoops the call.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Sorry,
I can't believe you called me out like that.
And in this little forward, in placing this story in this thing, he mentions the Dark Tower cycle.
Yes.
So, for the purposes of this conversation, I will refer to books 1 through 7, the cycle of the books.
Perfect.
Right?
Okay.
This story is the only piece of Dark Tower media, I'm ignoring the movie, of Dark Tower media that does not take place inside of the cycle.
Interesting.
Everything that we know about Roland from before his Dark Tower quest in the cycle of the books, we have flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But those flashbacks we learn within the context of the cycle, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
This, The Wind Through the Keyhole, the 8th book that is or is not worth reading, is Roland in the middle of his quest to the tower, telling a story of his childhood.
Yeah, we've seen before and after. And it fits.
But it takes place within Roland's journey. This just doesn't.
This can be anywhere because there is no framing device around it.
Which makes it exist outside of...
Interesting.
Is there anything specific that it sets up that doesn't quite follow what we then see as a clue that this might be outside of it?
No.
When he's talking about, because King mentions, where it takes place before we meet Roland, and there's something he was going to do, and I'm like, oh wait, did something about that change?
No, because
Okay,
actually, I love this story. I'll say that right away, and I love how much growth it shows in Roland.
Yeah,
because he has not reached Tull yet. And he is not the Roland from Tull.
he's the one from Wizard and Glass.
Yeah.
kinda. Yeah, he's between the two.
I imagine there's still a long time between this story and the beginning of the Gunslinger.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line specifically somewhere where he talks about mowing down all the slow mutants, and it says he's not that kind of killer, at least not yet.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, fuck, yeah.
It's really cool. And like I said, this whole theory of this standing outside of time somehow is just interesting.
It's a fun idea to explore for sure.
Anyway, but what is the story? It is the story of young-ish Roland as he is hiking through the Desatoya Mountains, which I swear I remember from somewhere,
Yes,
right?
we've read that somewhere.
Was anyone else, maybe it's just because Devin started playing this again, picturing the Red Dead Redemption landscape?
Yeah, it
like
is.
with the zombies and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is wasteland. It is a hot summer day. And his horse is fucking Dunzo, which is a really great kind of echo of where we meet him in the Gunslinger with his dying donkey.
Yeah.
I was wondering, is he going to get a mule by the end of this? Is this that kind of story?
That's this story is just an origin story of Roland's mule.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I know who I'm drawing at Christmas.
And he's hiking through the desert and he's like running low on water. And he's kind of freaked out, which I think is kind of cool because he's not
that Zen Roland who's like, if I'm supposed to have water again, there will be water. Kyle will provide.
Yeah, he's kind of like, this is all bad. Things are going bad.
He's also a little clumsy sometimes in the story, which I love.
This story is like peak Roland, just straight up action hero.
Yeah.
This is it really shows the Western, because this is just a straight up Western, which are most of my favorite gunslinger stuff. That's why I love Wizard and Glass so much, is that it just is a fantasy Western for a while. It's very cool. So Roland is walking through the desert and he finds a town full of bells.
Okay.
It's so cool.
The aesthetic, first of all, I love the gate that just has two walls on the other side that you could just walk around. Great. But describing a ghost town as though it had just celebrated a festival is like such an eerie aesthetic. I loved it.
It's so apocalyptic.
Yeah. Because everyone's just gone. Like there's blood splatters here and there as he searches, but there's no bodies. At one point he opens the door expecting to see the sheriff with his throat slit and his eyes gouged out, and no one's there.
The obvious threat of an empty town.
Yeah.
Like either people are hiding from something, or like that was my expectation, is like either people are lying in wait or something has come through this town already that is very, very dangerous.
My immediate fear would be, how far away from this event am I?
Yeah.
Do you think the Desitoya Mountains geographically correlate with, say, the Mines of Desperation, Nevada?
Yeah.
Why
I
not?
get that
Yeah.
same vibe.
Yeah.
Like, this is like them wandering through desperation in the wake of Tack. And so as Roland is kind of strolling through town, his hand automatically goes to his gun. And I wish so much that this is what this book was, which is a thing I say all the time, I realize. It is my most toxic trait, is trying to get ahead of stories and then being mad that they're not what I think they should be. Because I wanted this all to be Detective Roland solves the case of the empty town, because he's wandering around and he's following blood stains and looking over all of the evidence of where these people could have went. And I was like, this is really fucking cool. Cowboy detective. And it's even better when he finds a clue, a burned building on the edge of town. Doesn't factor into anything. I thought it was.
He would also be a terrible detective, because we know from the Gunslinger and Drawing of the Three that he's not imaginative.
Yes. I believe in this book it even says one of the things that Court says in his head
references like
you
slow
are not
thinking,
gifted in
methodical.
imagination.
Yeah.
But he does some rad detective shit, like notices that there are flowers left out in this town and they are wilted just enough that he knows whatever happened here happened within the last 2 weeks.
Okay, this is why he would be a great detective. Because he's so black and
He's
white
so
that
observant.
He just takes things as they come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't give a shit.
It's so cool, and I really expected this to continue when he finds a murder mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, he finds a boy in a trough of water, which he only notices because there is a dog rustling the shoe off of a body.
And he's squishy because he's been in the water a long time. And that alone always, like, the idea of a human body being sponge-like in its quality
it's
is very upsetting.
It's so gross. I wish I would have written it down, but he's like, he was killed just short of his man's growth, which would have been significant even taking into account the swelling he sees in his body now. And I was like, oh, makes me want to vomit. And then he talks about burying him, but hoping his body doesn't fall apart in his clothes when he takes him out.
Leave him. Why?
No, I really, really like this, because this is also something I feel like Roland loses and then starts to get back in the cycle, is he has this feeling when he sees this body, it's not a cross, it's a gold,
right?
it's a gold square that has some engravings on it, because he sees a church and he thinks it's the Jesus man, but this isn't that. And he just thinks, odds are I will never run into this person's kin, but I'm going to take this medallion, I'm going to bury him just in case. It's his belief in Ka, I feel like.
Before we get to James, the boy in the well, I wanted to talk about how this is a scene that I really love. The setting of this, because we find out that this town is Eluria, right? And the way when he comes upon this body, he has gone and he went to the law constabulary and found no one. But as he's been walking through this town, he's heard this just knocking noise. And I love a horror story that happens in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
This entire...
hot and oppressive, sunny.
Yeah, and completely dead quiet. That's so scary.
Yeah.
If this were a movie, you wouldn't have any music in this part.
Yeah, I just think it's really cool how this whole story, even once he is in the tent, to me feels so sun-blasted.
Yeah.
It kind of... The other book that did this for me is The Terror by Dan Simmons. I've talked about it before. It's the one that it takes place in the winter, like Arctic, and it made me feel cold and gray while reading it, and I felt like my dreams were like shades of gray. It makes you, when you think back on it, you see it that way, and this definitely does that, but it's like the complete opposite, just hot, sunny, bright.
Did we mention the Jesus, the dog with the
dog?
cross on it?
Oh, no.
Yeah. He that's by the trough where he finds James. There's this dog, and when Roland sees it, he at first wonders why it's even here.
Well, that's the knocking sound.
Yeah,
right?
that's what the knocking sound turns out to be, because he's the boot he's trying to wrestle off the foot of a body is knocking against the trough. But he sees that just by the nature of this animal, he has white fur with a black crucifix design in his fur.
And when he first sees it, he pulls out his gun and he's like going to shoot this dog. And then he's like, why would I do that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a different dude than we know at the start of Gunslinger.
I talked about this in The Stand, the way that King, when he writes about religion, he does it kind of in a cool, objective way, because in this you see that Roland's thinking about the Jesus stuff when he sees the dog too, and he's in the medallion on the boy is a religious one, and it's so scathing, his like internal dialogue about religion, and then the way it comes back to be like just to have this strange validity. I like the way King plays with those two things and writes about him when he does. I can read it without feeling gross.
Yeah, absolutely. I also love, because it's also the power of belief.
Yeah, that's what he makes it about, rather than like oppression.
Right.
I love that. I think later on when he's in the hospital, quote unquote, he thinks that these medallions are keeping him and this boy that we're about to meet safe. And he doesn't know if it's the metal or the God.
Yeah.
And the point that what God it is irrelevant. It's just the holiness of belief or whatever. Pretty
the
cool.
belief gives it power.
Anyway, my next note is Rip Topsy, hello slow mutants. We missed that when he went to the law offices, he found a book full of the misdeeds of Eluria.
I love that title.
I do too.
And immediately I was like, oh, this is some cult shit right there. But then it turns out that it's just like, nah, someone got drunk or whatever. But in the book, there is a note that says, green folk sent hence with a date.
Yeah.
Sorry, the misdeeds of Eluria would be the H.P. Lovecraft version of the story.
I thought it was going to be the porn parody version.
That's fine too. It can be both.
Call me Misdeeds of Eluria.
There you go.
Anyway, the fucking slow mutants show up and kill Roland. He dies.
Well, I love that the horse sneezes and dies.
Oh, yeah.
And he turns around and he's like, oh, you did me a favor, buddy. Because there are over a dozen slow mutants walking towards me.
Followed quickly by 30 more.
Yeah. And the fact that they are in broad daylight is insane.
And they seem way more self-aware than I recall slow mutants being.
At least one does.
Yeah, one of them's wearing a hat.
Yeah.
Slow mutants don't wear hats. Come on.
This one does?
He's the twinner of Lane Hardy.
Yeah.
You didn't notice he was tipping it from side to side every 5 seconds?
I like that. Fuck you, Lane Hardy.
Yeah, Roland dies. End of chapter 1.
It's crazy. It is, it's
shocked,
plot armory, for sure. But I like that later we come to find out, he finds out that the description that he's told is, you must have pissed them off a lot because they didn't kill you. When we found you, they had flayed your back from beating the shit out of you and were dragging you behind them on the way to do God knows what else.
It's so weird, too, because he doesn't shoot them. He tries to be nice.
Yeah, he just tries to scare them off.
Warnings and stuff, and it's like, not our Roland yet.
It's that weird because it's like, zombie movie shit. Like he can outrun it.
It'd be a waste of bullets.
Exactly.
But no, it would not.
And and
so you get the upper hand for
if
sure.
If it weren't for the fact that there was one hiding underneath an overturned cart that took him by surprise, he could have gotten away.
Chapter 2 starts with Roland thinking I'm dead. And I was like, oh, I was joking, but he's dead. I love this part because he's like having that, he's slowly climbing out of unconsciousness and having these slowly coming to terms with like, okay, I don't know what happened, but I'm conscious, so that means something. And then he opens his eyes to quote, his belief that he was still alive was severely tried. Because when he opens his eyes, he is in a stark white room. I imagined it like draped in white cloth everywhere.
Like a big silk tent.
A big silk tent. Well, in the foreword, did you guys read the foreword?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It says the idea, the seed for this story came because he was thinking about the talisman.
The festival?
The festival that's outside of like the capital that takes place in this big, huge tent.
And it's like 20, it's like 40 beds, 20 on each side. So it's super long. It's super high. It gives the feeling of a cathedral almost.
He is suspended like in traction.
That was wild. When he's like, I'm not in a bed. I'm above a bed.
Andy hears singing.
Yeah.
Which is
totally human
beautifully.
singing.
Everything about this story is beautiful and upsetting.
Absolutely.
And I love it.
Yeah, the singing he immediately thinks is a woman. He thinks he hears Susan, Susan Delgado,
Yeah,
a character that this
such
podcast has never heard of.
That is such a cheap shot, and I love it because anytime you set something against Susan Delgado, I'm like, oh, this is, I should be yearning right now. Like, this is a romantic, tragic yearning something.
It cuts
and
through
it puts me
everything.
there instantly.
And the writing helps too.
Yeah.
It's really astounding that as he's floating in and out of consciousness, he's imagining this pain in his back like a tree, and he thinks his skin is blowing like leaves.
Yeah.
It's
When
a
we
little too
find out
much-
what that
yeah,
is-
too much sensations
Yeah.
to feel. I don't like it.
When he sees the person across the room and he's like, their clothes look like a breeze is happening.
Yeah,
I wanted to
there's
vomit a
something
little. Yeah.
crawling under his clothing.
Oh.
Okay, can we just cut to the trait? Because I want to ask you guys a question about it.
It's
All right.
bugs.
It's bugs.
It's bugs.
If you were severely injured,
Would you like bugs?
would you be too upset? Would you be able to deal with the idea of it being bugs?
If they're going to magically heal my flayed back, yeah, cover me in bugs, Doc.
I want to think I would too, because I feel like that would help you sort of be like, I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to let it happen. But that
Listen,
would be a hard sensation to.
I'm of the
deal
mind
with.
that the second they make bugs taste good, I'm eating bugs because you work with what you've got.
Who are they, and why would they do that?
Lots of people eat. They're good protein, CM.
Haven't you ever watched Survivor?
Haven't you ever watched
No.
Snowpiercer?
Yeah.
They eat bugs on a train.
I am.
And I can too, damn it.
You can.
Do they describe what type of bugs they are?
They're doctors.
I imagine.
So they did get their PhD.
I'm imagining little beetles.
I was imagining
Yeah.
ants.
I was imagining like a scarab beetle type thing.
That's
Oh,
kind
okay.
of what I was thinking
Yeah.
too.
Gotcha.
They're smaller than, because in my imagination, because I remembered
Like,
I
more
read
delicate
this
than that, but
years
that
ago.
kind of
I
body
thought they were
style.
bigger. I thought they
Oh.
were big ass bugs, and they're not. And it's so much worse that they're tiny.
I guess I
'Cause
was
they're
thinking
legion.
of them as delicate because of the bells and the
yeah.
singing and stuff, and
Yeah,
everything else about this setting is delicate.
Yeah, because the strings of bells are very small and light and tinkly.
Tinkly. Tinkly is such a gentle, soft word.
So he is kind of conscious, and he's in this enormous hospital-like tent, and he's not alone. There is a boy in the bed next to him alive, and there is an old man whose back is moving across the way. It's fine.
Who's not moving his back. His back is moving.
The boy in the bed next to him is wearing a medallion around his neck. And my first thought was, oh, it's the dead kid.
Mine
I did too.
Okay, it's not just me. I thought it was the dead kid, and I'm like, they brought him back to life. Oh my God, what? Vampires.
Magic healers. That's
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
just assumed.
What makes it, because
Oh,
that's
spoilers.
like,
I said a spoiler a few seconds ago. Sorry.
it's not that, which would be disappointing, except what happens, what is allowed to happen because it's not him, is so cool because he and Roland just sort of like sink into each other instantly and go on the same plan that they barely have any time to even talk about or think about.
Yeah.
Well, Roland, they don't go into it a lot, but he is a trained improviser. I believe he trained at Second City.
Second City at Lud.
Yeah, I prefer the annoyance. Anyway, as he falls back asleep, he hears Court's voice saying, "One such as you is not made to imagine."
There it is. That's the line.
And I don't know the context. I just thought that's a cool line.
Oh, it's because he was. He isn't able to fathom how that boy could be the boy from the trough, and he is unable to think of a way that makes sense. And that voice is basically Court being like, "Don't worry about it. It is. Move on."
Oh, he's also
Right.
not in his right mind for reasons we'll come to understand, so he can't think clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got soup madness.
That's
All right.
why I don't eat
Oh my
soup.
God, I knew you were
This
going to say
again.
something about that.
CM poisons her soup.
Soup slander.
I will.
Good.
Wait, I don't-
Fine.
To what end?
I'm glad.
I'll
We'll
feed
be
it-
done.
I'll feed it to Josh. It'll be the one time I just get you to eat soup. I'll have poisoned it out of spite.
This is a strange tactic to get
Yeah.
Josh to eat soup.
It seems like a double fake. Like it's gonna tempt me to try the next soup she makes just to see if she's poisoned it.
And there you go.
Anyway, we reach chapter 3. As Roland wakes up from his sleep, he is thinking of Susan and Rhea of the unfortunate nickname.
I don't know what is that.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later.
Oh, okay.
We have a few books to read.
Gotcha. I thought that was a really cool. Just the Rhea of, because he opens his eyes and because he's thinking of Susan, and then he sees 5 Rheas, and he thinks, by thinking of Susan, I've conjured 5 of these Rheas. This is truly hell. And then they shimmer and glimmer, and they're hot.
At this point, were you guys wanting them to be cool? Like wanting it all to be just like a nice story, like
Here's
just
the
a fun
thing.
adventure? Because that's what I was really pulling for.
Here's the thing. Witches kick ass.
Right?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Witches, I believe, unbelievably underrepresented in media in general. Name a piece of witch media that is not 10 out of 10 kick ass.
Why,
Honest to God.
Why do
Do
we
it right
keep-
now. I need it. Go.
The remake of The Craft.
I never saw it. But The Craft.
The Craft is 10 out of 10.
Witches of Eastwick.
10 out of 10.
Hocus Pocus is pretty
10
good.
out of 10.
The Witch is one of my favorite
Fair
movies.
enough.
Are you gonna keep naming movies that have witches in them or are about witches?
Do you have some that you'd like to throw in?
No. I just didn't know if I felt like we were really sticking with this for a long time. I broke Keith.
The Witches.
I'll say
Okay,
that
to the
again.
witch, yeah.
What were we talking about? He's surrounded by this coven of
Cool
old
women.
crones who step forward and become the Castle Anthrax scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. They are nurses. They're, I imagine them in these like white nurse-like uniforms, wimples.
Yeah.
Okay.
The big flying nun craziness.
But
I
they all-
love that shit.
The coolest part is that they all have bells on their wimples.
Yeah.
Which sounds like that should be like a thing.
Something
Got
that
bells on your wimples? Are you okay? I got bells on my wimples.
What are you talking about?
CM had to go to the hospital.
What is
She had bells on her wimples.
What does this phrase mean? How do you use it in context?
It's something that happens to you. It's an affliction.
You just know it
Just-
when it happens? Okay, I'm texting you the first time I get bells on my wimples.
I hope you do.
Hey, you know what? We're going to move on. And they're also, it's never mentioned again, but they are also wearing
Rose pins.
Yep.
the sign of the tower. The witches aren't old. It's fine. The youngest sister chases the rest off, and she is obviously afraid of them. They mention her mother in a mocking way.
Sister Jenna.
Sister Jenna.
The hot one.
Yeah. We find out here that this is who he initially felt like a cold hand on his forehead at one point in the coming out of unconsciousness. He assumes now that the voice he heard was this woman. And with all the white, she just has like a black curly queue of hair that sticks out of the top that little curls around her forehead. And he thinks it's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. It's a break from all of the white. And I thought that was rad.
And she also has bells on her wimple.
Except
but hers
for-
are dark.
Yeah.
And they sound a little different. The quality of them is darker too. Darker, right?
Yeah.
So Roland is immediately horny for this lady. I wrote, she's different. I can fix her.
He also, I think it's here or some point soon where he says that he basically looks at her as a woman the first time he's looked at someone that way since Susan.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
And when she tells him not to scream, he looks at her and says, quote, "It's been long since I've screamed, pretty."
Sploosh.
5 out of 5. Bushing.
Not lying.
Roland's erotica.
This is a good book.
But it's also, it makes her blush. Like, he obviously didn't mean it that way, but it makes her blush.
She didn't?
And
he didn't?
I didn't read it that way until we
Are you
were
kidding
talking
me?
about that right here. Yeah.
Instantly, I was like, ho, 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 ho. Mr. Deshane.
That's you put that spin on it and made it that way in this room.
Well, we're learning something about Eve together.
I just want to point out how much more supportive of you being all
Listen.
horned up for Roland I am than you were.
Listen, it works.
Oh, she defends him. She's the other ladies are sort of being kind of stereotypically witchy, like gross and silly. He's not into it. And she orders them away.
Yeah. They flirt for a little bit and she pays him back by showing him all her bugs.
it is a great moment of promise you won't freak out. And then she goes
like,
down.
I would never.
I swear to God, nothing. You can't do anything that would break me. And then she goes down the line, and the guy at the end, his legs start moving, but his legs aren't moving.
Because she rings her bells.
She rings her bells. She just says like as though she's giving a very curt no. And then just legions of bugs come pouring off his legs.
They're described as twice the size of ants. So, like, you ever see just a big ant and you're like, you're too big. I don't like that.
I love that he's like, shit, I told her I wasn't going to scream. And that's all I want to do right now. I have to scream or I'm going to die.
Right. Because he just thinks about that is what's on my back. That is what's happening to me right now.
And that's hence my question earlier. Like, how fucked up would that make you feel?
She covers up the bugs, and we think for the first time, where are Roland's guns? And she lies, but she is hot, which is what my notes say.
Oh, I love, too, that she pushes her wimple back, and she's like, am I pretty? Tell me I'm pretty.
Hashtag relatable. And this chapter ends with her pointing out that actually the kid in the bed next to him isn't the guy from the well. He is.
Yes. You are
yeah.
James. James? You know that, James.
And he has the medallion
yes,
on
he's
him.
wearing the medallion.
So they have
he had in
matching
his
ones
pocket,
now.
Yeah. Which he also isn't sure how he got on.
I'm sorry. This is how my notes for chapter 4 start, so you guys are going to have to help me out. It says, a dream of an annoying bug. The bug is soup. What does that mean?
So
why would I write that?
He's having a dream about that is like, it's so the dream here and the very last dream of this story do something that I think is awesome. And it is the bringing reality into the dream. And it is, he has the dream that this giant fly is constantly hitting him in the nose. And even though he's fast, he can't get it. And he wakes up and the one of the sisters is like bashing him in the nose with the spoon. Just taunting him and being
a
mean.
dick.
Yeah. and wakes up, and they have this whole talk about, like, don't tell Sister Mary, you could get me in trouble, and I could do some things to Jenna if you get me in trouble.
Well, and he kind of plays his hand instantly because he's
Yeah.
like, where's the hot one? And she's like, oh, you like Sister Jenna, eh? You got a little thing
she's
for
in a
her?
cave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's in the cave thinking about what she did.
Yeah, because Mary is their leader, and
I was
she's...
really excited to see Thoughtful House because that sounded so scary.
Yeah.
I mean, learning what these ladies are and thinking that it's their cave that they just go to. I don't like it. She also, this nurse, I forget which one this is. She's kind of mentioned a few times.
She's what is it? Coquetta?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Coquetta?
Coquetta. No, because that's the grandma from... I kept confusing it with the grandma from...
Oh.
Okay, Coachella. Coachella also lets it slip that something about Jenna came back to us wearing the dark bells.
And that upset Sister Mary.
Yes. And because that's clearly the status piece that she's able to boss them around a little bit because she has these.
Yeah, and they keep, and I think Jenna, if she hadn't said it already or is about to say it, that these dark bells make her like the spiritual leader, but Mary is the big sister.
Yeah.
So everyone follows her. But there's some kind of political intrigue
I would
in
read-
this den
I
of
would-
vampire witches. It's
I would
awesome.
read more about that.
Right?
Do you guys want to play Vampire the Masquerade?
Yes. More
yeah.
than anything in the entire world.
We got CM to say yes to an improv game.
What? That's an improv game?
It's
It's a
tabletop. Don't worry
role-playing
about
game,
it.
But yeah.
Oh.
There's dice
I thought
involved,
it was a
probably. I don't know.
PC
I've never
game.
played it.
It's a PC game too, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll play that one. You
Okay.
guys do your thing.
After Coachella leaves, the boy in the bed next to him wakes up, and Roland is like, "Hey, we're brothers. That cool?" And John says, "Yeah, of course."
Because he knows more than Roland.
He knows a lot. Well, he kind of speculates. He kind of makes up a bunch of exposition.
Should we just go into what he...
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they have the conversation about how they all wound up here, it's because John and James were riding with a long haul caravan. They were guarding it, and they were split up. One was behind, one was in front. John was in the behind. When he caught up to them, they'd been attacked. The carts had been overturned. They were just overpowered, taken out, and all woke up here. And when he first woke up here, over half the beds were full. And then people started getting better, and then people started disappearing in the night.
As soon as you get better, you're
Yep.
gone.
Yeah, nobody left during the day. Nobody said goodbye. They just woke up and people were gone. And so now it said there were over 20 people. Now it's just me, that guy down there, and now you.
I love that. I love what that sets up because you know, like, oh God, that guy's going to disappear and we're going to lose our minds.
Yeah.
It's
And
so
it
fun.
happens fast.
Yes, it does.
Because Roland begins to lose consciousness as he's talking, and he kind of realizes he has been drugged in this soup.
And I
that
think
he's
the-
been
John
fed.
tells him too that they put something in the soup that makes you fall asleep and paralyzes your muscles.
Yeah.
But you got, and I think he says, but you got to eat.
You gotta eat.
And so do the sisters,
Mm-hmm.
because Roland passes out only to wake up in the night to hear and see the sisters across the way gathered around the old man. And
This is so metal.
it's so
fucking cool.
fucking scary because he hears them chanting in a strange language.
That's-
Condelak,
Yeah.
everyone.
They're attacks
Yep.
Or
of some
something.
sort. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, the bugs
creatures
are
like that.
The
Yeah.
bugs are Cantam.
Yep.
That's what they're called.
And he passes out. I think this is one of the points where he's like, he tries to pass out because he
Yeah.
wishes he didn't hear the noises that he hears.
See here slurping, greedy slurping.
Yeah. And the next morning they wake up and the old man's having a cigarette.
Good for him.
He passes out to the sounds of bloody slurping, and in the distance, the cross
Hold
dog.
on. Hold on. Don't skip.
Yeah, you
Oh,
really.
no.
Why would you skip?
Oh, no.
You skipped the recess.
I forgot.
Yeah, we have to go to recess.
I skipped a note, and I would like to continue to do that.
No, we are talking about this because this was so aggressively erotic
Yeah.
in the middle of this story, because before he passes out, after he hears the hard sucking sounds, he realizes, oh, they're sucking that man's blood, and they come towards him, and he's like, please fall asleep, please let me fall asleep. Oh my God, I don't want to be awake for this, because he's trembling violently, and he's like, I can't hold myself still. He tries. He's like, for sure they're going to see all my muscles. And they start to touch him, and it has it seems like a magical effect that it just makes him go big juicy, like boom, instantly. And then they consume that.
Sam, last Limey looked at a woman with Susan Delgado. I don't think there's anything magic about how fast that happened.
Whatever.
It's deeply upsetting.
It really is.
Because they're also
is.
slathered in blood
Yeah.
and in monster form.
Mhm.
Like, it's bad.
And you think it's bad enough that he goes juicy, and then that they share that.
Yeah.
You're like, Stephen King.
I wrote this really recontextualizes the sucking sounds. Okay, so chapter 5, now that that's done, chapter 5 begins and the old man is gone. Duh. Mary is pissed and says Jenna is rebellious like her mother.
And it's Roland's fault. Oh, I don't know if I think they mentioned this already. They call him a pretty man a lot.
Yeah.
So Roland's hot too. We've speculated on that, but can confirm now.
Sister Mary, big sister Mary, comes to Roland and she tries to fucking duck season his name out of him.
Yeah. That's really good. She talks about his brother. Like, so you know the person next to you? And Roland says, "What, you shouldn't know my own brother?" And she's like, but you're so old and he's so young. Yeah, there's 8 of us. I'm the oldest, he's the youngest. Our parents had kids for 20 years. And she's like, oh, fuck you. And then, of course, John, he's like, oh, she thinks you're so stupid you forgot a name like John Norman.
That's so smooth, man.
Yeah.
And they kind of hey, listen, we know something's up, but it doesn't matter because you're really weak and you need to eat this soup or I'm going to stab you.
The soup is getting inside you one way or the other is what she says.
We also get Jenna's backstory,
Yeah.
too, because we find out that her mother was someone that was also
She was
causing
that spiritual
trouble
leader.
and yeah.
Because she had the darker bells.
And she took off with Jenna and got sick. And Jenna started to get sick too. And so she brought her back. And it sounds like that was not something she wanted to do, but something she had to do. And then her mother died, but they were able to nurse Jenna back to health. And he's like, if she's such a pain in the ass, why don't you just release her from her vows? And she's like, yeah, that's not possible. Oh, and I think she gets him to drink the soup because she's like, if you don't eat this, I'm going to have Jenna whipped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's, like I said, he played his hand, so they know exactly how to make him mind.
One of my favorite lines in the story is when she threatens him with a knife. She's like, I'll have to stab you, and it's not safe to bleed around here. And I'm like, nah, that's so scary. Roland eats the soup and falls asleep, and when he comes to, there's something under his pillow.
Oh, is this too where him falling asleep? It's so cool the way it's described. It's like now that he knows that's what's happening, he fights against it. So he can't fight it completely, but it's described as it sends his brain, his consciousness to the dark side of the moon of his brain. And so he's still kind of aware. It implies that if he absolutely had to come out of it, he would be able to, and he would know he needed to. It's really cool.
But hopefully these things under his pillow will help. They are something called fiddleheads. Anybody, is that a real thing? Does anybody know?
Fiddleheads are a thing.
Yeah, they're speed.
Yeah, basically.
I think Trisha McFarland eats them in Tom Gordon.
That's what it reminded me of, but I couldn't
Oh.
remember because we never kept track of what it was actually called. We were
Yeah.
calling it something stupid. We
Well,
were very keying
us?
it.
Yeah.
We called something stupid and wouldn't give it up. That's crazy.
Here, he has received these sticks with a note from Jenna saying, take a small amount of this,
Nibble the head once an hour,
Yeah.
not in a sexy way.
just a little bit,
Hey,
or else
Hey,
you'll
and
fucking
Call me
die.
in the morning.
And he takes a nibble, and it racks him with these horrible cramps and horrible pain. And he's like, oh, this is just straight up poison. This sucks.
Makes his heart rate double though, and he's like, okay, this is how to counteract the drugs.
And also he's like, thank God I took such a small bite. Thank God I took such a small bite.
Yeah. He then has a short conversation with John, which will be his last.
That makes me sad. I was hoping he was going to be able to rescue him because John's like, hey, if I don't get out of this, if you can, will you take my and my brother's medallions to our family and let them know what happened to us? And Roland's like, yeah, man, if Ka leads me there, absolutely. Like it's a sweet moment between them. And I think John, like they've known each other minutes, it seems like, but he's like, I wish we would have met under other circumstances
Yeah.
because I think we would have gone on pretty well. And you can feel that.
Yeah.
Now he's going to die.
Again, Roland wakes up in the night, and this time he had like just had some fiddleheads. And so he is like actively fighting back convulsions because the witches are coming back.
Well, and his heart's racing so hard, and we forgot, like he's suspended. So that's the cool part about being suspended. So anytime he moves or spasms, the ropes and stuff.
The rig shakes.
Yeah.
And I thought this was cool because another cool way to show that this is a younger, less experienced Roland. Because this feels like something that the Roland from the drawing of the three would, I mean, when he's on death's door sick, he's just like, yes, I feel bad.
When he
Yeah.
cuts the
Yeah.
coke off of Eddie with that knife.
And
Yeah.
his hand
Stills
does
his
not
hand.
shake.
Yeah.
But this, he is struggling to. It's a really cool.
He hasn't mastered his body quite the way he will yet.
Yeah, it's neat. But the witches are back, and they are not alone. Who is here?
All I can think of is Lane Hardy now. I
Yeah,
forgot.
it's Lane Hardy.
Did
Slow
we-
mutant Lane Hardy.
Yeah.
This is also such a weird scene. Again,
This
have we
one is
had
weird.
slow mutants talk before?
That's what I don't think so.
Well, I
But-
mean, how much slow mutant content is there?
That's
There's
a good
the
point.
one scene
Yeah,
in
good point.
the Dark Tower.
And those are all
yeah, deep dark.
cave monsters. Yeah, he wakes up because the sisters are paying the slow mutant in Wixky and Backy to take the medallion off of John's neck so that they can eat him.
Oh, yeah, because they can't touch that.
Mm-hmm.
We did not mention that.
But it is a very funny back and forth where he's like, give me whiskey backy. Do the thing. But I do the thing you give me whiskey backy?
Won't you kill me? And they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
just do it. And he's like, okay.
It makes him kind of endearing.
Yeah, and I just wrote down bad shit goes down because he rips off the medallion and immediately books it.
Well,
Yeah.
he stabs John.
That's right.
And he does that to get away so that they don't kill him because he doesn't trust. So he gets the medallion and then he stabs John so that they
go
overcome.
immediately bloodlusted.
Which is super smart for a slow mutant, I thought.
And Roland just has to sit there
Yeah.
and listen to it. Awful. He notes that the fiddleheads are working, and at some point he taunts the witches. He's like, I'm starting to wonder if you're putting something in the food, which is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, more and more as he takes these, when he wakes up again, he has a little more control over his body and can move more normally.
And I believe it was either this night or the night before that Jenna comes to him and is basically like tells him that they're going to escape.
Yeah,
She
it's
has
the
a
next
plan.
night after John disappears.
Yeah. I love that the moment this scene begins is with him pulling out one of the fiddleheads and he starts eating it and then he hears, gotcha! And it's Coachella, who is hiding under the bed.
That's
So
creepy.
scary.
So fucking
So
scary.
creepy.
So scary. Imagine this enormous empty room and this fucking monster crawling out from under the bed.
I really want to see the scene
Like-
where she sneaks up and crawls under there and then waits.
How long was she there?
I know. That makes it worse.
And as she's crawling out and I'm fucking wetting myself, Jenna shows up and Roland makes his move, but he gets tangled. His foot gets tangled up in one of the straps.
This is so cool because you think he's going to get away because he just summons all of his
Yeah, 'cause
strength.
he's
And it's like he
Roland.
moves so cool, except his foot gets stuck.
But luckily Jenna has his revolvers and the dark bells, and she uses them to summon waves of doctors.
Holy shit. When Cochina, that's her name. I knew I'd remember it eventually. She, if I remember right, she like goes to grab Jenna by the throat to stop her from doing anything. And she shakes the bells and she sees the swarm coming and it starts to overtake her. And Jenna runs to Roland and is basically like, look, the bells bring him.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's going to hold him. So we need to get the fuck out of here. And then they hear Cochina scream into oblivion.
They make her a skeleton.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we also have to, this is another one of my favorite parts of the story, is John's medallion had fallen off when the slow mutant ripped it off of his neck. And it is across the room, and as Jenna is running to Roland, he sees her pick it up and bring it to him, and he's like, oh, thank God she can hold it. And she puts it in his hand, and he sees that it has left a burn on her hand, and he kisses it.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh,
That part ruled.
Roland's so goddamn hot. God damn it. This is not an aspect of these books that I had the first time I read them.
when he leaves the tent, the glamour drops, right?
It's
Yeah,
bigger on the
pretty
inside.
much.
Yeah, it's like a TARDIS. He sees that there were only actually 6 beds, and it's described as like an old Red Cross tent. So it's like not this beautiful grand place.
Oh, which we should mention before they manage to get out, all the other sisters besides Mary try to stop them. And she says, the bugs ate Cochina. Let us go or they're going to do the same. And they're like, see you
Bye.
later. Have fun.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Well, they do warn her, though, that Sister Mary's
Sister Mary.
coming for her.
And she does show up, and she's this awful wraith.
The description of her is awesome.
And he draws, I love that he draws his gun and she laughs at him. And his response is, okay, and then just starts choking her.
All right. Can we I want to focus on the one important word. Like, we all know that I love to talk about choking. The joking at his gun is like, unless that's dipped in a holy man's water, blood, or semen, I ain't doing shit, boy. I'm more shade than physical being, which is rad as fuck.
Yeah.
But he dives for her and starts choking her, and he describes her skin as various. And that is
so
so uncomfortable.
That's fucking awesome.
It rules so much. It is too many things under my fingers. I love that. There is it's described as like a bolt of lightning in his head. That's how she like psychic shocks him away, gets him to let go and bounces back.
Thank goodness, though, he did not shoot the Jesus dog earlier.
Right?
No, which brings me to my pitch, Hollywood, for this multi-billion-dollar movie franchise, Vampire Hunting Dog.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
This
Oh, that's
summer.
so cool. Yeah.
Van Wolfsing.
No.
Bart
Got it.
Helsing.
Dog Van Howl.
Sing. Nice.
I'll think of something. Dogula. How hard was that? Wait, no, that implies that he's the Dracula. It's not
Well,
important.
the dog vampire hunter, I would assume, would
Hunts
fight
vampire
dog
dogs?
Draculas.
Yeah.
God, this is
Mary's
such a
a
good
dog.
idea.
Well, I mean, he
She is-
basically describes everyone. All the other
Dracula's
sisters
girlfriend,
as dogs.
woof.
Except,
You know, Home Alone.
That's amazing.
What were we talking about?
Okay, so the dog
okay.
attacks Sister Mary.
That's right.
Which we didn't mention before, but the reason that this Roland theorizes the dog has been around is because its front leg was badly broken and mended clumsily. So running is not an option. Jumping is way out of the question. And several times he's heard the dog barking outside the tent and has just kind of known it's around or been dreaming it's around. And so it's described as though it is something from the trunk of a Buick 8 as it flies like a skin bat over the top of their head because they're under like a rock outcropping. And so it goes over their heads and latches onto Mary's throat and like just rips her head clean off. And Roland's like, I think we should get out of here before it does the same.
I love that if him or the story just takes a second to be like, why? Like, what would make that dog do that?
She asks. Jenna asks.
Yeah, and Roland's like, Ka means never having to fucking think about it. Just don't fucking worry about it. It was a god dog.
Get used to that answer, Jenna.
We're alive. We're alive, and we always will be. And then Roland falls asleep while making out.
Oh, all right. We can't just gloss over this.
No.
Sure we can.
No.
This is one of the most adorable moments. So they like find this place to camp out and they're laying in the grass. And this isn't anything, but it was something for me. Something I always forget about the Dark Tower is that it's a field of red roses, but the grass is purple. I always forget about the purple grass. And so when he lays in this grass that says like feels like a bed, and the smell is purple. It just made me think.
I did
Cool.
not even
Yeah.
make that connection.
So they're laying in quote purple grass.
I love too the like she's never kissed somebody before, and just the way it's described when they kiss, that it was like she
Yeah, I
was
also
sweet
like
and
that.
clumsy and
Yeah.
and then figured it out, and it was just like so cute.
It's the hair. It's the one line when he mentions her hair, the curly Q that gets away, and she says it's wayward like its mistress, and it's such a fucking cute line. And the thing is, fucking Jenna knows what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Jenna's known this whole time.
I'm so angry they didn't plow. It would have made me feel better.
Well, they probably would have if he hadn't fallen asleep.
I know. Why'd he fall
Alternate
asleep?
ending. They do plow, and right in the middle of it, bugs.
I don't know. Like it's like I get what I want, but then it turns bad, which is worse. Okay, anyway, we should say what actually happens.
Yeah, what actually happens is he falls asleep, and in the morning, he has a dream of the bells and the god dog and
a
the
howl
tower.
of pain.
And a woman screaming in pain.
Yeah. And when he wakes up, she's bugs.
She is.
The end. I
Yeah.
don't know what else to say about
the
this.
way it's
other-
described is
Yeah.
It's described as a rapture.
Because
Yeah.
he finds her clothes and there's just a wad of bugs in like her hood.
Yeah, and he doesn't see that right away. Because he's a trained improviser at Second City Lud, he acts on instinct and picks up the wimple with the bells. And when he does that, bugs start coming out. And we forgot to mention that during that face-off with Mary, Jenna says, "I'll call the bugs. I did it before." And she says, "They're not going to come this far. You're insane." And she tries, and the bugs don't come. So we assume now that the bells have lost their ability to do anything. So now he picks up the bells, and then these bugs start coming out from everywhere, and he thinks that they are making a capital C.
because they try to form a shape and they're struggling.
Yeah. And it turns from a C into a curly Q in the shape of her hair. And Roland senses that enough of her held on to give him this last message that, like, she's okay. She knew what was going to happen. She knew she was a vampire.
And then undercutting all of that, he screams in disgust and they all disperse. And he's like, and that's the last I'll ever see of her. Because he thinks, I could try to call him back.
But they're bugs.
Yeah.
But they are bugs.
Yeah.
Yes, the man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. Classic.
Classic.
So that is the Little Sisters of Eluria. Should we do a rating here?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go first. This is the first time I've read this. I was a little wary because I didn't like Wind Through the Keyhole my first time reading it, and I was worried about that feeling repeating. But because it doesn't have that framing device where all I want to do is spend time with the quartet when I have the opportunity, this doesn't give me that, so I don't miss it. Standalone, I think it's awesome. 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
I feel the same about it. It doesn't, like exactly what you said about the way the Wind Through the Keyhole makes you feel versus this one. Much cooler as a standalone. I'd be curious, our listeners who have read this without reading the related books, like what they would think of it. When I first read this, I had only read what was out at that point. And reading it again, having completed the journey to the tower a couple of times, I find I like it even more. I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
I love a short story. Love them. So I'm sure you two, I know you two because I sent it to you, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners are aware that over the past week or so from the time of recording, Stephen King has been tweeting very cryptic things about the Dark Tower series. He tweeted, "Midworld is still there," which, of course, gives me goosebumps. And reading this makes me go, give me just a whole book of this stuff. Give
That'd
me
be cool.
just
An anthology book.
Even if it was just an anthology, if it was just little stories of Roland's adventures as a young man. Obviously, if there was a fucking Battle at Jericho Hill book,
oh my fucking God. I want that so
entire
bad.
mind.
Give me more Cuthbert.
But
Yes.
in the meantime, this rules. 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
That's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode where we are going to be doing our very first Derry Public Radio Revisited. That's right. We are going to be doing a revisited episode where we are going to be seeing how Pet Sematary has changed for us over the years. For CM Alexander and Yves Godot, I'm Joshua Kahn reminding you, 'tis done. The bridge burned.
Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Everything's Eventual. Let us know your thoughts on Facebook or Instagram at Derry Public Radio or X at Derry Public. You can also send us an email at derrypublicradio@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. And don't forget to chat with us and other Stephen King and horror fans on our Discord. The link for that is in the show notes. Check out our Etsy store for merchandise and our Patreon for bi-weekly bonus episodes and a huge backlog of episodes too. You can get access to those at the $5 and up tier. Just search for Derry Public Radio on Patreon and on Etsy. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.